Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. Your first fight in Omega's Tournament of Death is against a giant serpent who honestly isn't all that powerful once you're actually able to hit it. Since the robot was talking about grabbing the strongest beings, you would have expected him to get something a little stronger than a flying garden snake, but no one's really going to complain about an easy win, especially when you're not likely to have many more of those. Sid and the others were able to watch your battle on the different monitors around the Deltascape hub after he and Nero did a bit of hacking, and they weren't all that surprised that you won the fight either. They tried to learn a little bit about the thing you were fighting, but other than its name, they didn't get much, although they think they'll be able to do better in the future. With a little more snooping around, they realized that there are a total of 4 people for you to fight in the Deltascape, including the one that you just beat, which means you still have 3 more matches in this world alone, and seeing how Omega has a lot more of these digital worlds out there, you're gonna be busy. The reason why the robot is so focused on finding who the strongest being is a whole nother question entirely, one that Midgard-Sormer has an answer for. Omega's primary goal is to improve itself, and the best way to do that is by fighting strong enemies. After it beat Shinryu, it didn't have any stronger opponents, so it decided to make its own, which is why it created this not-so-little test. But making life isn't Omega's primary function, so making complex creatures takes a serious toll on it, which is why it's making creatures in this Matrix-style world. That way it can determine which one is actually worth creating in the real world. So once the test is over, Omega will create something even stronger than Shinryu so it can fight it. Needless to say, a fight on that scale could cause another calamity, which means stopping it is mandatory. There's still the question of Alpha. Unlike Omega's other creatures, the weird chocobo was fully formed even outside of the rift, but it's not the most complex of creatures, so Omega may have finished it on accident. When Omega had first flown off, Sid had tried to put it back in stasis, which didn't work, meaning something had likely malfunctioned. And since any means of stopping the superpowered robot is important, Biggs figures that he and Wedge should head back to Cartano to see if they can figure out what went wrong while you keep doing your usual job of smashing things. If Biggs can't figure out how to turn Omega off, then the only way to stop him from making something even stronger than Shinryu is for the Warrior of Light to prove that she's the strongest being in creation. Granted, then you would have to fight Omega, which is still bad. But for now, there's nothing to do but keep on with the tests. And for the second match, you have to fight a creature that can manipulate gravity. Nero being Nero, he's already built a device that should help you counter that power. So it's off to the second Deltascape battlefield you go to face off against a very disgusting monstrosity called Catastrophe. If it wasn't for Nero's little toy, the tentacle monster definitely would have murdered you, but because you brought the right tool for the job, the battle is another win under your belt. Since there's no telling how long it'll be before Biggs and Wedge have something to report, you may as well move on to the third challenge, which has you dealing with a being called Halicarnassus, the Queen of Dimension Castle. Nero actually knows the name, and since it's some knowledge he has that Sid doesn't, he makes it a point to rub it in the man's face. She's the villain from an old fable that was loosely based on some events that supposedly took place in the 4th Astral Era, but there's no way to know for sure. People think the story is pure fiction now, which means Omega is bringing fairy tale creatures to life. Considering the fact that Omega is a machine with no real creativity of its own, the only way it can create a new rival is by using other people's ideas. Omega has knowledge of entire eras stored in its memory banks, and that knowledge isn't just from one particular shard, but the whole concept of real and fake doesn't really mean anything to it. So whether a story was true or not, that won't stop him from bringing the concepts to life. So whether Halicarnassus was real or otherwise, you're still about to have to fight her. And it is definitely a unique experience straight out of a storybook, but she's still not the weirdest or most powerful thing that you fought, so you pass another of Omega's tests without all that much effort. For the final challenge, you have to face a name that will be familiar to some, X-Death, which is the recreated version of the main villain from another world, namely Final Fantasy V. The only info Nero was able to pull up about him was that he can wield the power of the Void, but he has no idea what that power will actually do. So his advice is just don't get hit by it. Sid has something a little more useful to add. Both Halicarnassus and X-Death are people from stories where they were defeated in the end by heroes, which means they weren't even the strongest beings from their own worlds. So why wouldn't Omega recreate the things that beat them instead of the ones that lost? That's a very good question, one you don't have an answer for. And after Sid gets a call from Biggs, there are even more questions. Apparently the stasis field is showing every sign of being activated even though it's not. It could have just malfunctioned after taking some damage during the calamity, but the controls are complex even compared to other Allegan devices, so the odds of them figuring out a quick fix are slim, which means you have to go and face off against X-Death. He proves himself to be a strong challenge for the final match of the Deltascape, but as expected, the Warrior of Light manages to win. Since you won all 4 matches, Omega shuts down Deltascape and declares you the victors. His other test worlds haven't completed their trials yet, so you get a moment to lick your wounds out in the real world while you wait for round 2. The whole thing seems to be going too smoothly for Nero's liking, but Midgard-Sormer thinks his mistrust is misplaced. Omega could have done this entire experiment without letting any of you know, but instead it brought you in and let you make it as far as you have. It makes the dragon ask the question that Sid and the others should have been asking. What is Alpha, and why was he sent to you? Sadly, not even the little chocobo knows its own purpose, which means all you can do is wait and see. To top things off, Omega hadn't expected you to survive, but he's noticed that certain beings tend to get stronger when they are put into really stressful situations, which means if he wants to draw out your true potential, the best way to do that would be to put you under severe stress. And nothing does that like killing one of your friends. And that's where we're going to stop for today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and ding that notification bell. And if you want to buy me a coffee for my work, sign up to become a member of the channel. Until next time, guys. Later.